Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and all potential Oxford Brookes University research and analysis project candidates. As you know, I've been creating a series of videos that will be helpful for you in terms of getting started with your OBU RAP project. Most recently, the videos that you would have seen potentially are how to choose your topic and the three key reasons of why students tend to fail the OBU RAP project. Both of these are critically useful to anyone who is contemplating about taking on the project. And in this particular video, we are going to talk about another very important step as far as the OBU RAP project commencement is concerned, and that is with regard to primary research and selecting a company. Let's get to the core discussion. A gentle reminder, if you're considering working with me as your potential mentor for the OBU RAP project, you can definitely check the link in the description and fill the registration form, and you will receive the initial instructions email. That's how you get started. And thereafter, after receiving the instructions email, you can go through it. It is a highly detailed sort of map that will help you around all the necessary areas that you need to get started. As far as the video is concerned, let's get started. How to select the company. That's the core theme of this discussion. Now, in order to think about selecting the company, and I must tell you, I'm hoping to make this video a very casual discussion. So I'm going to be a little less formal and keep things quite chilled out. Okay, so in terms of getting started with your process, you know that you have to start selecting the topic. That's how everything starts. And I've talked about it in the how to choose your topic video. So you can check it out if you already haven't. So if you are considering selecting a company, the ideal step would be that you should have reached the topic shortlisting stage in order to start working on selecting the company. Because when students tend to first select a company and then try to work it backwards, trying to think, all right, so I have Apple in my mind. Now let's come back to the topics and see what can I do with Apple? What are the topics that would relate to Apple? This is the incorrect approach, in fact. And even though it may work at times, it is a very dangerous approach, because if you take a company like Apple, or potentially most candidates tend to have large listed popular brands in their mind, thinking that their favoration and their interest about this, maybe they like the product of that company, maybe they've read a lot about that company, maybe they're hoping to buy stocks in that company. But when you have that sort of company and you come backwards, you try to work it reverse, the ideal situation is that every topic is well related to the company. Now, if you take Apple, almost a good number of 15 topics in your 20 topic list are quite correlated to this company, and anyone who chooses any of those topics can do a very high level effective project. So that is why it's important to have an idea about the topic first and then go for the company, because that suitability factor is very, very important. So the basic concept is that you should have reached at least the 2 to 3 topic shortlisting stage, or you should have finalized a topic for yourself before you start considering seriously what your company can be. Now, when you have done that, you need to look at those topics and firstly identify if those topics require primary research or secondary research. This is the fundamental factor that will decide the way forward for you in the rest of your journey. So there are certain topics that will require a heavy level of primary research, especially topics like that relate to human resources management and human resources performance. So where you need insider track and inside information about the company's workings in order to make or develop a useful project. However, in contrast, there are topics, maybe topic number 19, mergers and acquisition, topic number 4, 5, topic 8 about operational and business financial performance and consequences, These are topics, just a few examples. I think if I remember right, topic number 2, topic number 7. So these are topics that have a predominantly secondary research tendency. So the first thing you should figure out is look at the topic or topics that you have selected, maybe 1 or 2, and identify if those topics require primary or secondary research. Now, in this particular video, I'm going to focus on the primary research aspect. I'll create a different video for anyone who is hoping to take a topic which is related to secondary research. Okay, so let's assume that your research effort is going to involve primary research. And I don't think I have to remind you, but let me quickly and very briefly tell you what primary research and secondary research is. Primary research basically involves an insider line to the company and a first person glance at the company. You're looking at the company directly through your own eyes. You might be interviewing employees in that company, you might be meeting managers, meeting leaders of that company, you might be handing over surveys, questionnaires to directly collect data. So what happens is that the company itself becomes your primary source of information. However, secondary research, in contrast, is a third person view where you don't have a first person glance at the company, you don't have first or primary sources of information. You have to go through an intermediary channel. So it could be websites, it could be analyst reports, it could be financial news websites, journals, company investor relations, documents like the annual report, 10K, 8K, 12K, and it may be analyst briefings and presentations. So third person sources of information relate to secondary research. Now, of course, that information you already had. So if we focus on the primary research aspect, and if really that you have selected a company which requires primary research, you need to ask yourself two fundamental questions. These two questions are, if whether this company that you have selected is the company that you're working for, or you have a direct link to in an ethical manner, or is it a company that you're just thinking about? It may be a company that is in your area that you have, you see whenever you commute back and forth to your classes or wherever, and you've developed an interest about that company, but you have no insider track. You don't know anyone directly in that company. You don't work for that company. So these are the two areas. It could either be a company that you have a direct link with, that you might be working for, or it could be a company that you have no connection whatsoever. So the way we deal with these two situations, these two scenarios are slightly different. Okay. Now, if it's option 1, we'll try and discuss that matter first. Option 1 being that the company that you have selected is ideally the company that you work for, or it could be a company that you might have someone quite close to. You might know the leader or the CEO or a CXO in that company. It might be a relation of yours, it might not be. That's not really a major issue. But whether you have a direct line from unethical grounds, that's very important, right? That's extremely important. You cannot be stealing information, you cannot be providing information or developing a report on a company to which that you don't have direct access to, but you have access to it through questionable channels. Maybe a friend has agreed to give you certain reports about that company, and those reports actually may be confidential information. So those kind of situations must be avoided. Anything and everything that you do must be definitely ethical. So somehow, if this company is directly linked to you, you can consider the following. You can ask these questions from yourself. These are very important questions to ask. And depending on the answer to these questions, you can develop your approach. The first question you can ask yourself is, does the business profile of this company that you've selected truly match the topic that you have selected? Every topic, and I've talked about this in the choosing the topic video, every topic has its own behavior. own requirements, own demands, own meanings and definitions. That means that whatever business you choose, it may be a company that you have a close link with, but if the business profile itself, if the way that business functions is not a good match for that topic, then it is ideal that you try and consider a different option. I'll give you an example. Now, if a topic that you have selected is seemingly in your mind well oriented toward a service entity, a service business, but you've selected a company which is a retail operation or a manufacturing operation, now in your mind, this is not a good match. And walking into working the project or developing your project or starting your project effort with that mismatch can be a problem for you to move forward. So it's very important you consider whether the business profile matches the topic. Then you should ask, can you get official authorization for the research report? Or do you know how to get authorization? This is extremely critical, especially with primary research, because without authorization, I told you already, it has to be ethical. So without authorization, a clear line approval, it is very, very dangerous to go into investigating and analyzing performance and information about a company. So it is extremely important that you ensure you know the right channels of authorization in that company. Excuse me. The next question you should ask is anonymity required? Meaning, is it such that you are supposed to develop the report without mentioning the company name? Now, if so, anonymity cannot be maintained without formal approval with or from the Oxford Brookes University, which means that you are supposed to get someone, a relevant official in that company, a senior employee in that company, to write to Oxford Brookes University saying, I have approved this project and I have requested for the particular candidate to use XYZ or a different acronym or abbreviate the company because we need anonymity maintained in that report. So you need to ensure if the company requires anonymity, and you have to confirm whether you can get an official write to the university and inform them that they have given you formal approval to conduct the research but maintain the anonymous status within the report. Is access for primary research practical? This is obviously a general consideration anyone makes. You have to think, you have to definitely contemplate seriously what different means of primary research and primary data collection you're going to use. And then you have to think, are these means maybe surveys, maybe questionnaires, maybe interviews, maybe observations, whatever these primary data collection means, you have to think, are they practical? If they are impractical, then you do know that primary research or the entire report or the entire effort becomes a slightly questionable story. Do you know teams or team leaders or senior managers, CXOs, relevant officials? Do you know them? Do you know who you're supposed to engage with for the research? Especially because if you've chosen a topic, for example, let's say in terms of marketing, then talking to the functional manager in terms of maybe operations or corporate finance might not be, even though it may be helpful, might not be your primary motive, primary objective. It might not serve your purpose critically. So if your report is about marketing and you want to really, discuss with the marketing manager, then the marketing manager, senior marketing manager, chief marketing executive, or the chief marketing officer, the CEO would definitely have a big deal or a big play with the marketing operations and the branding of the company. So these are individuals that you might prefer having a chat with, and you might benefit greatly in terms of getting information, relevant information for your project. So it's important that you consider and think, can I or do I know the people that I should be talking to? Can I meet them? Will the research involve sensitive aspects that might affect your corporate relationships negatively? Now, this is a important matter, and I've come across many situations where things tended to go a little awry. Things have, looked a little bleak to certain mentees, especially with respect to topics related to motivation. I've met several candidates who have had challenges. Not that the challenges cannot be addressed, but if you are doing your project in a very extensive manner, if you're pushing boundaries, if you're asking difficult questions, these can touch a nerve with insider employees. Not only employees may actually be fine if you're trying to expose something, or if your effort is going to expose a weakness in that company. Employees actually might think that this is for the good, and they might actually be vocal about it, because they might not actually have the chance or the opportunity to talk about it much in the company. Say, for example, if there's abuse going on within the company that is seriously affecting motivation, and your questionnaire has a question about abuse, and the moment the manager, the leaders, anyone who is involved in the abusing of employees in that company will definitely have a serious issue. I've known this to be a very prominent factor in many of the major audit firms in several countries, actually, where the environment, the internal environment of these companies are quite bad, and junior executives and junior auditors are treated very badly. And mostly when junior auditors are also ACCA students and OBU RAP candidates, and they try to pick this topic and they try to choose their own company in order to work through factors like motivation, they rarely get the opportunity to do it. They rarely get approval. This is a common phenomena I've continuously come across. So, you have to be a little bit careful in touching the nerve and getting into sensitive areas. Of course, you can do it in a very diplomatic way. Of course, you can do it in a very selective way, but that might actually hinder the quality of your report. Despite that, you can definitely go ahead with such an approach, because obviously you're working for this company, and job markets are a little tight these days, and you don't want to lose your job, and you don't want to actually turn your company environment into a hostile situation as well, because you might actually get the project done. And I've known situations like that as well. And you submit, you get the degree, all that is good, but in the process of doing the project, you actually have managed to turn certain senior managers, because your project exposed certain problems, you might manage to create enemies in that company. So this is something that you should be avoiding as much as you can. You can create enemies on your own terms, but just because of this project, which is academic interest of yours, getting into such a tight situation within the company would not be a smart decision or a smart move. Of course, on the other hand, in your employment environment, if you think that that this is actually a good opportunity for you to expose some of the issues, and maybe you are someone who has the power and who has the ability to bring those out, and later use that information to benefit for the company itself, that's a different matter. That judgment I leave to you. Just be careful with sensitive situations, and hitting those difficult spots, asking those sensitive questions from employees. Can your research be useful to the company to get a positive endorsement from the leaders? So this is somewhat related to what I spoke about earlier. I have had many mentees who have been working, especially with regard to internal company processes, internal audit, IT initiatives, like automation, things like that, motivation, employee motivation related initiatives. So they actually do the project, and they do it in an anonymous state, and they actually derive a lot of useful information. And I've spoken to many mentees who have used that information to communicate to their directors, their CXOs, their leaders, what they found. And through that, they have actually benefited. They have been able to develop constructive conversations within the company about what's going on, how they can improve, etc. And this has actually helped. So you can look at opportunities like that as well. As I said, you have to be smart about it, you have to be tactical about it, and you have to always maintain objectivity in all of this work. Simultaneously, develop a set of questions you need to get clarified through me or your mentor. In meeting one, of course, with me, we will be discussing taking this up in meeting one. I've already explained this for anyone who's working with me in the initial instructions email. So if you have received it, you know that you have seen it. The idea is that in the first meeting, you're able to bring, after all of these considerations, you're able to bring any questions that you have and get them clarified. Overall, if the responses to all these things that we've considered are relatively positive, not an outright yes, there may be challenges, there may be difficulties, but if it is relatively positive, then you can proceed with the company. That's the general recommendation and the suggested framework for determining whether your company or whether the company that you are hoping to select can be finalized as your target company for your primary research based OBU RAP endeavor. Okay, so this is when the company that you're talking about or you're hoping to engage with for the RAP is familiar. Maybe you're working for it, maybe you have a direct relation into the company. However, in contrast, if the company that you're looking at or you're considering seriously for your primary research based RAP effort is not a company that you have any connection whatsoever, you don't work for it, you don't know anyone inside, then let's look at what factors you can be considering. Do you have one, few, or many companies in mind? This is the first question that you should ask. Now, if this is so, if you have few or many, this is not a practical or viable situation to move forward with. You definitely should be considering shortlisting that list and bringing that down into one or two, ideally one. Two would be good as a backup, plan A, plan B. If plan A, after the following considerations, if they give you a negative response, then you might want to have a backup. So you can have one or two in mind. That's the ideal number. Does the business profile truly match the topic you have selected? We've already talked about this. And even in this situation, and in fact, in any situation, one of the first things you should consider is, does that business match your topic well? Do you know who to reach to get authorization? Write to them or meet them immediately. So you might actually research the company at a ground level, maybe on LinkedIn. You might look at the employees working in that company. You might look at mutual connections that you have. You might try to send them a few messages, formal professional messages looking or mentioning that you're hoping to take up this project. You might have email addresses, maybe it's someone you've seen, maybe it's a business card that you've got. So you write to them. Somehow the idea is you try and get authorization and approval as soon as possible. It is ideal that you can set up a meeting. It's an opportunity for you to also develop your communication skills and present your pitch. Get more familiar with the situation, because you might actually have to visit the company on many occasions if they approve. Third point is something we've already looked at, but again, during that approval process, you should verify if anonymity is required, and you get the relevant official to write to OBU mentioning that they require anonymity, but they have given you approval. Confirm this, get this done as soon as possible. Actually, something that I should mention here is sometimes you should be very careful, because sometimes at the beginning of your effort, you go and talk to the manager or a supervisor or a senior leader, and they say, oh, right, it's okay, we need anonymity and we are okay with it, so we'll give you approval. I'll send the mail, is it urgent? They'll ask you that. You might actually say, no, it's not urgent, I'm submitting in November, so it's just June or July now. It's okay if we send it by October. It's very dangerous. Do not offer advice or offer or request or make requests like that. This approval, this confirmation, getting it done as soon as possible, immediately as possible, within 1-2 days as possible, is the best for you. Because I have come across situations where certain company leaders have actually verbally initially said, we are good, I'll give you approval, you go ahead, you do the project, just let me know, when it's close to the deadline, I'm a little busy now, just let me know and I'll send you the email. They do that, and then 1 month before the submission, you actually go and remind them about that request, and it's close to submission. So can you send that email? And then they've heard about your work. They've heard about the kind of questions. They've seen the questionnaires that you have, and they're now worried about the exposure. So now they're not only disagreeing with anonymity, now they are also hesitant to send that email to OBU. And this can put you in a very, very difficult position at times. I've known a couple of situations where mentees even have had to back out and had to defer, postpone their effort. A lot of hard work gone in the water because the company ultimately didn't agree to provide approval and send the anonymity response to OBU. So be very careful. Get it confirmed as soon as possible. Is access for information for primary research practical? Verify how you can get information because you don't have an insider track. Now, for someone who is working inside the company, they'll know most of the things that you're supposed to know. They'll know who to talk to. But for someone who doesn't have any idea, this is very important. And it's very difficult to get this kind of information. You know how difficult it is to get into a corporate building, right? So it's that difficult. Unless you are an employee, you're not allowed into, generally even the building. Unless you're, heading into an interview. So you might have to use a mission impossible tactic to get into such a building. So be very careful. Be a little, have a high level of scrutiny about this. You need to think about the practicality of information access. Verify how you can get that information. Maybe in the meeting that you set up with the leader to get approval, you can talk about this and you can ask them, who can I speak to about this? What is their designation? What is their name? Could you introduce me to them now? Could you give me their email address? Could you write to them with me on CC so that they might actually know about this effort and they might expect a call from me, etc. So get that verified. Can you get official access to teams and leaders that you hope to engage with for the research? All of this needs to be looked at and verified. Will the research involve sensitive aspects that might affect your corporate relationship negatively? Especially, it might be a company that you might have aspirations to join in the future. So if that's actually a situation, then this is an opportunity for you to impress these leaders rather than getting them to be hostile to you. Everything has two ways, You can either do it the right way or the wrong way. So if you do it the right way, this might actually create an opportunity. If you can impress them, you might even land an interview. And then fair game, you go to the interview and you showcase your true potential. They are already impressed with the way you conducted your research. You might have been very professional, very elegant in your conversations. Your output might have been very high quality. You might actually have produced something that is very useful to them. So they might actually consider you to be a very, very viable candidate and potentially a high caliber candidate and give you the job. So you have to consider these aspects because asking the wrong questions and the wrong time, in the wrong tone, in the wrong manner from the wrong person can be a very, very dangerous thing. Trust me, I know not OBU RAP, but I know in my early career, I've made that mistake many times. So that's not something I would advise you to make. Can your research be useful to the company to get a positive endorsement? I've already touched on that. So your research can actually be useful. Simultaneously, you can develop a set of questions you need to get clarified through me, your mentor, in meeting 1, as I explained earlier as well, with regard to all of this work. And ultimately, if the response to the above are positive, you may proceed with the company. And therefore, as a result, we cover or we complete the discussion that is related to the considerations that you must have in terms of selecting your company, especially a company that will require primary research. Now, if you are someone who is considering that, I'm sure that this video has been helpful. I hope that it has been helpful, that you know what questions to ask, how to get ready, what factors to consider. So on that note, I will see you on a different video, especially with respect to the secondary research. If you're someone who is considering a company with secondary research, pop into that video. Just a reminder, you know that the playlist is available for you on YouTube, which is OBU RAP Mentoring with AZB, where a few critical videos have been created for you, including this one. So you can go to the link of the playlist in the description of this video and access that content as well, and use it as an opportunity to clarify any doubts, any areas that you have. Again, once again, just a gentle reminder, if you want to work with me as your mentor, you know what to do. Check out the description, click on the link, send me the details, and you will receive the instructions email, and you can take it forward from there. All the best and happy researching, ladies and gentlemen. Good luck. I'll see you around.